Hi, and welcome to the Board Game Entrepreneur Podcast. As always, I'm Nick Angiers. This is our 15th episode, and by our, I mean my. And today I'd like to share my thoughts on getting people to come to your events. I think this applies to any business in general, actually. So, when you've created a product of some kind, how do you get people's attention? How do you get people to care about it and eventually buy it? So going back to the beginning, with my first small events, I was charging about $10 for tickets, and it's actually really challenging to get people to pay for something. I find, especially if it's something that's inherently fun, like games, right? Like you're providing value to someone, but in order for them to see it as a product that they're willing to pay for, that's a big jump to go from $0 to $10 even. Think about when you see something online, let's say it's an app, and you see that it's free, you're probably not going to hesitate to download it. But if you see that there's a price tag on it, even if it's $1, then it's a little bit different. You're going to think more about whether or not it's something that you would pay even $1 for. And then if it's $10, you're going to think even more about it. So with the events, I tried to add as much value as I could. And the way I did that was I'd have special things to attract people, like bring and buy, where people can bring games and sell them and also buy them. And then lots of like really big games that they wouldn't get to play normally. So just added as much value as I could. But I think the strategy that I ended up focusing on was to do lots of regular events for free to build up that crowd. And these free events, they do take time, as I'm putting the time into them. But when you look at it, it's really just greeting people and recommending games and teaching games and sometimes even playing games, all of which are things that I love. So I don't mind spending the time to build up that crowd. Some other aspects of it are going out and finding the host venues, social media. So all of this is work. It's fun work, but it's still an investment of time. So for getting people to come to the events, you really have to find the right platform. So I used Meetup, and there's a fee for that, but I was lucky enough to have a friend who had a Meetup account. You get 3 different groups that you can create, and he was only using 2 of them. So he gave the other one to me. If he ever needs it, then I'll just pay him the fee of the 4th one. You can just add an extra one on. So that's like over $200 a year that I save not having to get that subscription. And Meetup's really good for getting people that you don't know to see your events. And then other than that, I use Facebook. So that's more for people that I do already know. And I do a lot of my social media stuff through Facebook. I do have Instagram and Twitter. I never use Twitter. I have no idea how to use it for my business. Instagram, I just put pictures, a little videos of cool stuff that's related to board games. But I think it's better just to stick with one until you've really kind of mastered it. And the one where your crowd is going to be the most. So for a lot of reviewers, of course, it's going to be Instagram because it's all about the photos. Or if you're designing, maybe you want to go with Twitter. But the important thing is to be active, show people that you're always doing things and always looking for ways to make your product, whatever that is, better. In my case, it's events. So I think the very most important thing is just to be consistent. So I have my events each week, and I try to make everyone's experience enjoyable, especially first time attendees. I want them to have a really good experience, because if they do, then they're much more likely to come back than if they came and then it was just chaotic or nobody paid attention to them. Then they're probably not going to come back. You'll always get some people come and just check it out and just come that one time, and that's fine. But I do want to leave them with a good impression. So for my case, number 1 is consistency. Have the events each week and have rules in place. So when people aren't sure about if an event is going to be held or not, I want it to be really clear. So, for example, if the venue is closed, of course I'm not going to have the event. But as long as it's open, I'm going to have the event. So it's not going to be a matter of, oh, I'm busy that day. There's not going to be any host, or I'm traveling. So we're just going to cancel it, or it's a holiday. That's a big one. So some holidays the venues are open, some holidays they're not open. The holidays where they are open, then I will run the event. So as long as the venue's open, the event will run. I think that's a very clear rule that people can understand. And I'll always get questions like that. So I think just having that reliability of the event each week and showing that it's managed. So if someone isn't following etiquette, then I'll step in and take care of that. And also being responsive. So when I get questions about the event, then I'll respond right away. I think that plus time really builds up the number of people that are going to come out to attend the events. And then in time, I will have a crowd of people that have been to my events. So when I do launch a bigger one, I'll have a much wider net of people who are likely to attend my paid events. So that's kind of the idea. Also with my mini cons, I'll have some paid, like the open gaming will be free, but any special events like tournaments or design jams, there'll be, like a $10 ticket for that. So the more people I know and that I've played games with or gone to other events and talked to, I'll be able to target better who I think is going to be interested in the paid events. And of course, I'll design the paid events around what I think people are going to be interested in. Another thing I've tried is an incentive system. So with Meetup, one big challenge is that not everybody signs up. So they see it on Meetup, but they don't click that they're going. So that's called RSVPing on Meetup. It's also a problem that people RSVP and then don't show up, but personally I haven't really found that problem with mine. Once in a while, yeah, it does happen, but more often than not, it's a matter of, so I post it on Facebook and Meetup, and then 2 people show that they're going, and then 10 people show up. So that really harms my discoverability. When other people see that only 2 people are going, they're very unlikely to go. But once they see, 10 people are going, they're more likely to go, and then that shows other people that this is a well-attended event. So this is one big thing that I've really noticed is that there's a snowball effect. The fewer people you have, the less likely other people are going to join, and the more people you have, the more likely other people are going to be interested. Then once you have like a big event, then everybody wants to go, right? And it just expands from there. It's got kind of an exponential curve to it. So with the incentive system, what I did was I had a little stamp card. And every time you RSVP and show up, of course, you get a stamp. 5 stamps gets you a bubble tea. Okay, so I pay for that out of pocket. I just started this incentive system before the pandemic started, so I only had, I think, 1 or 2 people who had filled up their card. People really liked the idea, and I offered to store the cards for them. So I had like a little booklet where I just make the cards myself, just print them at home, and then print them on cardstock, cut them out, write the person's name, first name and last initial, and I tried to know everybody's name. I think that helps with making the experience more personable. For the draw, I need their name so that I can call them when they win. So the incentive system is a good way to get people's names. And yeah, I don't use their full name, of course. And just because, people don't want to give out more information than they have to. So I don't take email addresses or any of that stuff. And what that does is they have to show that they signed up. On the first time that I just tell them about the card, I honestly don't really care if they are RSVP'd. I'd rather just give them the stamp and just tell them, okay, for next time, if you want to get your second stamp, now you know, right? So you got to RSVP either on Facebook or Meetup, doesn't matter which one, because I don't expect everybody to use a specific platform. I kind of have to narrow it down, but one of those 2, and that pretty much covers all the bases. If they really don't want to use either of those, then there's really not much I can do. But more than 90% of the people are going to be covered within that scope. So starting from the second one, I'll usually see them if they RSVP, and they can do it last minute. They can even RSVP like right before the event. I believe it's Meetup that doesn't allow you to RSVP after an event has started. So after the start time, you can't RSVP anymore. But Facebook, you can. So you can show that you're going even halfway through the event. So I let people do that just because after the event, it'll show all the people that went, right? So that's great too. People will see last time a dozen people went. Ooh, okay, a dozen people. So there's probably a good 3 different games running. That might be something that I'm interested in. So that's an incentive system, and it was going well. Long term, I'm planning to get host venues to at least subsidize the rewards, so that I'm not paying it out of pocket. Right now, it's just a few dollars per reward, but if they could pay for half of that, or eventually, when I get sponsors, then I could have all of that paid for free, because I would be promoting them when I talk about the incentive system. And then the cards work for now, but they are a little bit clunky, so eventually I'd want to get an app. And it can be pretty simple. Like they can have the app and they can say that they're going. And then I'd probably have to integrate it with Facebook. Yeah, that's a little bit further down the line. I'd probably first start out with they just have like a stamp card on their app, right? So they have the app, and then every time they RSVP and show up, then somehow I give them like a digital stamp. I haven't thought that far. So right now I'm just using a stamp, and then each time I'll use a different one. You can buy them at the dollar store for $5 for $1.50 or whatever, different animals or whatever. And then I just use a different one each time. And I can store the cards at the venue, so I don't have to carry them around. Right now I'm using the cards, well, I was using the cards before the pandemic, the cards for each venue. So you can go to any event, including mini-cons, special ones like game design jams, and you can get a stamp just for showing up for those. So I think this is a really good idea. It's quite simple to implement, and it's been pretty well received. So I'm going to keep streamlining it, and I'm going to keep doing it. This is just one example of how to get people to buy your products. If you're doing something that's purely online, then you're going to have a very different strategy. But that's how I've been doing it. For a podcast, just as an example, like you can be doing guest appearances on other people's podcasts, and then draw attention to your podcast that way. So there's going to be a lot of that. Eventually, I will be doing that. I'm just starting out now, but I also do plan to start getting guests pretty soon, because I've talked about pretty much all the things that I want to talk about now. I'm going to do a few more episodes, but I am starting to line up guests, so that's kind of the next phase. All right, for next episode, Kickstarter is something that you can use for, I don't want to say any board game related endeavor, but a lot of them. So I'd just like to share some of my thoughts of the pros and cons of using Kickstarter. All right, as always, thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Happy gaming.